Hello everyone. Today we have to discuss about transport of oxygen in blood. Okay, and and you know that the oxygen is very essential part to carry out oxidative phosphorylation in the mitochondria. Okay, and in this process there is production of ATP take place. Okay, that's why it is a very important process. These are the learning objective of today's lecture. To know about oxygen cascade, to understand various stages of oxygen delivery during exercise, and to know about oxygen delivery during critical illness. Okay, so all these concepts we have to discuss in this lecture. So first of all, we need to know how the oxygen transport take place into the uh, respiratory system, okay, and how the oxygen entered into the uh, pulmonary circulation, okay. So you have to see that this is lungs and this is lungs alveoli, okay, and oxygen we inhale, take in. To alveoli and it will diffuse into the systemic arteries. Okay, and then this oxygenated blood transport to a whole body. Okay, by the systemic circulation. This is systemic arteries. Okay, and so in this one, we have to see that how the oxygen transport takes place into the blood. Okay, so you know that oxygen used up by the cells, and it release carbon dioxide into the blood, and then this carbon dioxide by the systemic veins exhale through the lungs. Okay, so this is the path of oxygen transport into the body. Okay. So, what are the requirements for oxygen transport system? Okay. So, the requirement is that because our body need continuous supply of oxygen, our brain need continuous supply of oxygen. Okay. Uh, for fulfill their demand. Okay, so that's why the oxygen transport system match oxygen supply with the demand. Okay, if there is any disturbance between the supply and demand, so it could be lethal for any organism. Okay, and this figure shows that transport of oxygen and the principle behind the oxygen transport into the pulmonary capillaries. Okay, so you have to see that the oxygen diffuse down the concentration gradient. Okay, down means from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. Okay, and you know that the oxygen or carbon dioxide is gaseous in its gaseous form. Okay, so that's why we have to consider partial pressure of oxygen and partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Okay? And so the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the dry inspired air is this partial pressure of oxygen 160 and partial pressure of CO2 is zero, around zero. Okay. So this figure clearly indicates that the oxygen flow down the concentration gradient. Okay, so you have to see that the bronchial air. Okay, so bronchial air is humidified. Okay, it has moisture within it. Okay, so due to this, the air or partial pressure of oxygen in this bronchial air is 150 and partial pressure of carbon dioxide in bronchial air is again zero. Okay, and again in alveolus the partial pressure decrease up to 100 and partial pressure of carbon dioxide up to 40. Okay, so you have to see that the partial pressure of 160 or here partial pressure of 150, so O2 easily flow into this transport up to the alveoli because alveoli has partial pressure of oxygen 100. Okay, so you have to see that the 160, then 150, then 100. Okay, so oxygen move down the concentration gradient. Okay, and in this in the blood, that is venous blood, the partial pressure of oxygen is only 40. Okay, and partial pressure of CO2 46. Okay, so you have to see that in the alveolus air, partial pressure of oxygen is 100, and in the venous blood, partial pressure of oxygen is 40. Okay, so obviously oxygen flow down the concentration gradient, that is 100 to 40. Okay, so that's why oxygen easily diffused into the pulmonary capillary. Okay, now when the oxygen diffused into pulmonary capillary, the partial pressure of oxygen become 100. Okay, and now in respect to carbon dioxide, you have to see that the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in uh, in this part, okay, systemic arterial blood is 40. Okay, so that's why tissue easily release their carbon dioxide into the blood. Okay, so when the tissues or cells release their carbon dioxide into the blood, the partial pressure of CO2 reach up to 46. Okay, 40 to 46. Okay, so in the mixed venous blood, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 46. Okay, here you have to see that the partial pressure of alveolar air is 40. Okay, so obviously the carbon dioxide release down the concentration gradient 46 to 40. Okay, that's why the carbon dioxide easily diffuse out from the blood or pulmonary capillary into the alveolus, then it is released into the air. Okay, so we have to see that the movement of oxygen take place down the concentration gradient. Okay, or by the process of diffusion. Okay, so there is no other type of diffusion here. Only the diffusion is there, where the transport take place from the higher concentration to the lower concentration. Okay, and now oxygen cascade. Okay, so the a pattern of partial pressure of oxygen into the various region. Okay, you have to see that the pattern of partial pressure of oxygen in each region uh, uh, continuously decrease up to the level of mitochondria. Okay, so you have to see that in the air, the partial pressure around 150. In the alveoli, the partial pressure again decrease up to 100. Okay, and and again it when it reach to the tissues, the partial pressure again decrease. Okay, so you have to see that. Okay, so this decrease in partial pressure of oxygen from air to the mitochondria is known as oxygen cascade. Okay, so this pattern when the where the partial pressure of oxygen continuously decrease up to when the oxygen reach up to the mitochondria. Okay, because ultimately oxygen is used in the mitochondria. Okay, where the ATP produced. Okay, so this is called oxygen cascade. Okay, so oxygen move down the concentration gradient from a relatively high level in air to that in the cell. Okay, and the partial pressure of oxygen reach the lowest level, that is 4 to 20 mmHg in the mitochondria. Okay, so mitochondria has only partial pressure of oxygen 4 to 20 mmHg. Okay, so that's why it continuously delivered to the mitochondria where it utilized. Okay, in the electron transport chain or in the process of oxidative phosphorylation. Okay. So, what are the key steps in oxygen cascade? So, these all are the steps in oxygen cascade. Okay. So, first of all, uptake of oxygen in the lungs carried out. Then, carrying capacity of the blood. Okay. So, the uptake of oxygen depend on the carrying capacity of the blood. Then the blood deliver oxygen to the capillaries, and the capillaries deliver to the interstitium, and then ultimately the oxygen delivered to individual cells, and where the oxygen utilization take place. Okay, so these all are the steps in the oxygen cascade. So how the determinates affect partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so these are the some determinants of partial pressure of oxygen. So inspired oxygen concentration and barometric pressure. Okay, so the partial pressure of oxygen and the transport of oxygen depend on the inspired oxygen concentration and the pressure. Okay, so partial pressure of oxygen determine the oxygen saturation in the blood and alveolar ventilation. Okay, so ventilation is a term used when the continuous supply of oxygen is there and there is no suffocation is there. So that time the term used alveolar ventilation. Okay, so the ventilated condition is good for continuous flow or movement of oxygen into the body. Okay, and V upon Q distribution and matching. Okay, and oxygen diffusion from alveoli to the pulmonary capillaries. Okay, so now we have to discuss that the oxygen transport carried in which form. Okay, so oxygen carried in the blood in two forms. The first is a bound form with the hemoglobin, and another is dissolved form. Okay, so a very minute quantity of oxygen can transport in the dissolved form, and a large amount of oxygen transport into the bound form. Okay, so that's why the red blood cell RBC has hemoglobin, okay, and approximately 97 to 98% oxygen transport into the bind form with the hemoglobin, and uh, only 2% okay, oxygen transport into the dissolved form. Okay, and when the oxygen dissolves into the plasma, it always Henry laws of dissolution. Okay, so it depends on the partial pressure of oxygen into alpha. Alpha is the solubility coefficient. Okay, so the dissolved oxygen concentration depends on the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so uh, normally only 2% oxygen transport into the dissolved form. Okay, and low capacity to carry oxygen. Okay, so this form is has low capacity to carry or transport oxygen into the blood. That's why a large amount of oxygen transport into the bound form. So oxygen bound with the hemoglobin. Okay, that present in the RBC. Okay, and this is the structure of hemoglobin, which has two alpha unit and two beta unit. Okay, that's why we have to say that it is alpha 2, beta 2. Okay, and the another type of hemoglobin also has in some of the organism, which is called hemoglobin F. Okay, and it has alpha 2 and gamma 2. Okay, and the gamma chain has a higher affinity with the oxygen. Okay, and so the normal adult has hemoglobin A, the normal hemoglobin. Okay, or hemoglobin has iron atoms in their center. Okay, iron atom, and each gram of hemoglobin can carry up to 1.34 ml of oxygen. Okay, and theoretically up to 1.39 ml per gram, but actually it can carry 1.34 ml of oxygen. Okay, and molecular weight of hemoglobin is around 54,000 dalton. Now the which chemical bonding form between the hemoglobin and oxygen. Okay, so hemoglobin combined reversibly with oxygen. Okay, there is no irreversible binding and there is no permanent binding is there. Only the reversible binding is there, and hemoglobin bind. oxygen with the reversible bond, and association and dissociation of hemoglobin and oxygen occur within a millisecond. Okay, and critically fast reaction important for oxygen exchange. And here the type of reversible bond is very loose coordination bond between heme iron and oxygen, okay, which is easily reversible, and oxygen carried in the molecular state, not ionic state. Okay. Now, what is the oxygen saturation and oxygen capacity? So, up to 4 oxygen molecule can bind to one hemoglobin maximum, and the ratio of oxygen bound to hemoglobin compared to total amount that can be bound in the with the oxygen. Okay, it's called oxygen saturation. Okay, so it is not necessary that always hemoglobin has saturated state. It is not necessary. That's why how many molecules bind with the hemoglobin uh, and the maximum capacity or total amount that can be bound with the hemoglobin. So this ratio is called oxygen saturation, and maximal amount of oxygen bound to hemoglobin is defined as oxygen capacity. Okay, and oxygen content in the blood. Okay, CaO2. So approximately 97 to 98% carried in combination with hemoglobin, and only 2 to 3% oxygen transport in the dissolved form in the plasma. And that's why the oxygen content equal to the sum of oxygen carried on hemoglobin and dissolved in plasma. Okay, equal to the SaO2, the oxygen saturation, into hemoglobin into 1.34 plus partial pressure of oxygen into 0.003. Okay, so by this formula you can calculate the total amount total content of oxygen present in the blood, either in the bind form and either in the dissolved form. Okay, so oxygen content in 100 ml blood in normal adult with hemoglobin 15. Okay, and approx 20 ml per deciliter. Okay, and 90.4 ml oxygen hemoglobin plus 0.3 ml in plasma. Okay, so this is oxygen content that present in the 100 ml of blood, and this curve is the oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, so you have to see that here when the partial pressure of oxygen increase, okay, the hemoglobin, the oxygen concentration in the blood increase. Okay, this is oxygen concentration. Okay, which is directly proportional to the partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, and this is hemoglobin saturation. Okay, so the oxygen concentration either depend on the partial pressure of oxygen and the hemoglobin saturation. Okay, so if the partial pressure of oxygen is increased significantly by breathing 100% oxygen, then a small amount of extra oxygen will dissolve in the plasma. Okay, and at a rate of 0.03 ml oxygen per 100 ml of blood per mmHg. Okay, but there will be normally be no significant increase in the amount of carried by the hemoglobin. Okay, so this you have to observe in this figure. You have to see that this is dissolved oxygen. Okay, you have to see that when the partial pressure of oxygen uh, increase. Okay, so there is no significant change in the dissolved oxygen. Okay, you can see here 100, there is this amount of oxygen dissolved in the blood. Okay, and this is up to 600. Okay, so the difference is very less. Okay, and here you can see that in this figure uh, the oxygen combined with hemoglobin. Okay, so when oxygen combined with hemoglobin, okay, and the partial pressure of oxygen increased, there is there is no significant change in the hemoglobin uh, bind with the oxygen. You can see that the solid line doesn't have much difference, but the total oxygen level has increased much. Okay, so you have to see that. So the increase in the partial pressure of oxygen significantly affect the amount of oxygen that dissolve in the plasma, but not too much, not much effect of the oxygen bind with the hemoglobin. So venous oxygen content, which is defined by the CVO2, venous oxygen content. So the venous oxygen content equal to SVO2 into HB into 1.34 plus pulmonary oxygen content into 0.003. Okay, so the mixed venous saturation, that is SVO2, measured in the pulmonary artery, represent the pooled venous saturation from all organs, and SpO2 influenced by changes in the both dissolved oxygen and venous oxygen. Okay, and normally the mixed venous saturation is about 75%. However, clinically and mixed venous saturation of about 65% is acceptable. Okay, so by this formula you can calculate the venous oxygen content in the blood. And what is the difference between the arterial uh, venous difference? Okay, so there are some of the factors which increase the arterial venous difference, and some of the factors decrease the arterial venous difference. Okay, so so the arterial venous oxygen content difference is the difference between the oxygen content into the artery and oxygen content into the veins. Okay, so this the normal difference is 5 volume percent. The normal difference. Okay, but which condition increase this arterial venous difference, and some of the conditions is decrease the arterial venous difference. Okay, so the first of all, the decreased cardiac output increase the arterial venous difference. Okay, while increase the cardiac output, decrease the arterial venous difference. Okay, oxygen content, and increase oxygen consumption, increase the difference of arterial venous difference, and skeletal relaxation, decrease the arterial venous difference, and exercise increase the arterial venous difference, and peripheral shunting decrease the arterial venous difference, and seizures increase the arterial venous difference, and poison decrease the arterial venous difference, and shivering uh, increase the arterial venous difference, and increase temperature increase the arterial venous difference, while the decreased temperature decrease the arterial venous difference. Okay, so these are the factors which affect the arterial venous difference. Okay, of oxygen and oxygen delivery. Okay, so this is DO2. Okay, dissolved oxygen ml per minute equal to the Q into oxygen content into 10. Okay, and it normally would be 900 and 100 ml per minute approx. So some of the factors decrease oxygen delivery, uh, like decreased cardiac output, and decrease hemoglobin concentration, and decrease blood oxygenation. Okay, so these are the factors decrease the oxygen delivery. Okay, and oxygen consumption. So the amount of oxygen extracted by the peripheral tissue during the period of 1 minute is called oxygen consumption. Okay, okay, and this is approximately 200 to 300 ml per minute. Okay, oxygen consumption, and this can be calculated by the formula VO2 equal to Q into oxygen content into the artery minus oxygen content into the veins into 10. Okay, and oxygen consumption is commonly indexed by the patient body surface area and calculated by the uh, oxygen consumption divided by the body surface area. Okay, and normally this value between 110 to 160 ml per minute per square meter. Okay, and another terms used in this transport of oxygen is oxygen extraction ratio. So the oxygen extraction ratio, which is called O2ER, is the amount of oxygen that extracted by the peripheral tissue. Okay, divided by the amount of oxygen delivered to the peripheral cells. So this is called oxygen extraction ratio and index of efficiency of oxygen transport. Okay, so this ratio um, can indicator of efficiency of oxygen transport. Okay, and this can be calculated by the VO2 upon DO2. Okay, any amount of oxygen extracted by the peripheral tissue divided by the total amount of oxygen delivered to the tissue. Okay, VO2 upon DO2. Okay, so normally this value is 25%. Okay, but increase up to 70 to 80% during exercise. Okay, in the well-trained athletes. Okay, but normally this oxygen extraction ratio is 25%. And there are some factors which affect oxygen extraction ratio. So some of the factor increase oxygen extraction ratio and some of the factor decrease oxygen extraction ratio. So decrease cardiac output, increase oxygen extraction ratio, and increased cardiac output decrease the oxygen extraction ratio, and increased uh, venous oxygen content increase the oxygen extraction ratio, and skeletal muscle relaxation decrease the oxygen extraction ratio, and exercise increase the oxygen extraction ratio, and peripheral shunting decrease the oxygen extraction ratio, and seizure uh, increase the oxygen extraction ratio, and poison decrease the oxygen extraction ratio, and shivering increase the oxygen extraction ratio, while hypothermia uh, decrease the oxygen extraction ratio. Okay, and hypothermia increase the oxygen extraction ratio, and anemia increase the oxygen extraction ratio, while hemoglobin content increase in hemoglobin content decrease the oxygen extraction ratio, and low partial pressure of oxygen increase the oxygen extraction ratio, while increase in the partial pressure of oxygen decrease the oxygen extraction ratio. So these are the factors which regulate the oxygen extraction ratio in the body and affect the oxygen transport into the blood. And this figure indicate that uh, the oxygen delivery with respect to the oxygen consumption. Okay, and here you can see that in general the uh, total oxygen is more than venous oxygen. Okay, so the when oxygen consumption is high, okay, during exercise, and increased oxygen requirement during exercise is usually provided by increased cardiac output. Okay, so this compensated by the increased cardiac output during the exercise. Okay, and if oxygen delivery falls relative to oxygen consumption, the tissue extract more oxygen from the hemoglobin, so the saturation of mixed venous blood falls below 70%. Okay, so you have to see that in this figure, a reduction point C, this point is C, cannot be compensated for by an increased oxygen extraction and result in anaerobic metabolism and lactic acidosis. Okay, you have to see that. Okay, so in which at this point lactic acidosis increase when the oxygen delivery decreases uh, from less than 500. Okay, and when the oxygen delivery is more than 500 ml per minute, there is no lactic acidosis. Okay, So there is at this point the anaerobic respiration is more, and at this point the anaerobic respiration is uh, okay, and anaerobic respiration is not present. Okay, so this graph will clearly indicate that oxygen delivery. Okay, you have to see that. Okay, 80%, 60%, 50%, 40%, 30%. Okay, and oxygen diffusion from interstitium to cells. So intracellular partial pressure of oxygen is less than interstitial fluid partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, and oxygen you know that oxygen continuously utilized by the cells, and cellular metabolic rate determine overall oxygen consumption. Okay, and that's why the normal uh, concentration of oxygen approx 5 to 40 mm Hg, average 23 mm Hg. Okay, normal partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, and normal intercellular requirement for optimal maintenance of metabolic pathways only 3 mm Hg. And another term is Pasteur point. Okay, so the partial point is defined as the critical mitochondrial partial pressure of oxygen, below which aerobic metabolism cannot occur and cannot proceed. Okay, so there is minimum partial pressure required to maintain aerobic metabolism into the body. Okay, this is called partial point, and it is approximately 1.4 to 2.3 mm Hg, and this is oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, so on x-axis this is partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, and at scale this is oxygen saturation. Okay, so you have to see that when the partial pressure of oxygen increase, the oxygen saturation is increased, but up to certain point. Okay, so this is called oxygen dissociation curve. And oxygen dissociation curve is a sigmoid shape. Okay, this shows that the amount of oxygen that is saturated on hemoglobin is dependent on the amount of oxygen that is dissolved in the plasma. And the amount of oxygen carried by hemoglobin increased rapidly up to partial pressure of oxygen of 60 mmHg, but above that curve become flatter. Okay, and when hemoglobin takes up a small amount of oxygen, it relaxed state to favor additional uptake. Okay, and combination of first heme with oxygen increase affinity to second heme and so on. Okay, that's why the curve is a sigmoidal shape. Okay, so when the first molecule attaches with the hemoglobin, its affinity with the attachment of the second molecule is increased, and so on. Okay, and the maximum capacity of one hemoglobin molecule is 4. Okay, that's why the curve is a sigmoid shape. And significance of sigmoid shape curve is you have to see that the steep portion, this portion, and plateau portion, this portion. So steep portion, when the small drop of oxygen partial pressure lead to a rapid decrease in percentage saturation of hemoglobin. Okay, and it favor the release of oxygen in the tissue. Okay, so this is the significance of S-shaped curve, and in the plateau portion of curve, hemoglobin highly saturated with oxygen. Okay, and favor the loading of oxygen in the lungs. Okay, so so this property of hemoglobin uh, favor the release of oxygen in the tissue and loading the oxygen into the lungs. And steep portion of the curve between 10 and 60 mm Hg. Okay, and small increase in the partial pressure of oxygen yield large increase in the oxygen saturation. Okay, so this is the significance. And at the tissue capillary, blood comes in contact with reduced tissue partial pressure of oxygen, and oxygen diffused from the capillary to the tissue. Okay, and significance of flat portion of curve. So association portion of the curve is called flat portion of the curve. and greater than 60 Hg. Okay, follow the flat portion of the curve, and large increase in the partial pressure of oxygen yield small increase in the oxygen saturation. Okay, and at the pulmonary capillary, blood come in contact with increased alveolar partial pressure of oxygen, and oxygen diffuses from the alveolus to the capillary. At the partial pressure of oxygen rise, oxygen bind with the hemoglobin and increase oxygen saturation. Okay, and very little rise in the oxygen saturation above 100 mmHg of partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, so that's why the then curve is flattened. Okay, and this is rules of oxygen oxyhemoglobin curve, which is called rules of thumb. Here you have to see that this is partial pressure, this is saturation of oxygen. Okay, when the partial pressure of oxygen is 27, the oxygen saturation is 50. Okay, when the partial pressure of oxygen is 40, the oxygen saturation is 75. When the partial pressure of oxygen 60, the oxygen saturation is 90. Okay, when the partial pressure of oxygen is 250, the oxygen saturation is 100. Okay, so what is P50? Okay, this is another parameter. The partial pressure of oxygen in which the blood at which the hemoglobin is 50% saturated is known as partial pressure, is known as P50. Okay, so this value is called P50 when the partial pressure of oxygen in the blood at which the hemoglobin is 50% saturated. Okay, so this is called P50, and the P50 is a conventional measure of hemoglobin affinity for the oxygen, and the normal P50 value of normal condition is 26.7 mmHg. Okay, so at the partial pressure of oxygen to 26.7 mmHg, the 50% hemoglobin becomes saturated. Okay, and as P50 increase or decrease, we say that curve has shifted toward left or toward right. And P50 less than 27, the curve shift to the left side, and when the P50 is greater than 27, curve shift to right direction. Okay, and when the curve shift to left direction, it favor the oxygen delivery into the tissue. When curve shift to right direction, it favor with the oxygen binding with the hemoglobin. Okay, and both the important both the phenomena is important for the oxygen transport into the body. Okay, so there are certain factors which affect oxygen dissociation. Okay, like blood temperature, okay, blood pH, carbon dioxide concentration. Okay, so when the increase in blood temperature reduce the hemoglobin affinity for oxygen. Okay, and lowering of blood pH, okay, caused by the presence of hydrogen ion from lactic acid or carbonic acid reduce oxygen affinity for oxygen. Okay, and higher carbonic concentration in the tissue decrease the hemoglobin affinity with the oxygen. Okay, so these are the parameters which affect oxygen uh, dissociation into the blood. Okay, so you have to see that in this figure how the oxygen dissociation curve shift in each parameter change. Okay, you can see that when the temperature is decreased, the curve shift to the left. Okay, when pH is decreased, curve shift to the right. Okay, so in this figure you can easily see that the normal curve in the middle line. Okay, and the effect you have to see that in this figure. And what condition shift to the curve to left side, and what condition of the curve of the environment shift curve to the right side. Okay, so left side uh, shifting when the acute alkalosis is there, decreased partial pressure of carbon dioxide, decreased temperature, and low level of 2,3 diphosphoglycerate, carboxyhemoglobin, and methamoglobin, abnormal hemoglobin. Okay, so all these parameters uh, affect or increase the affinity and curve shift to the left side. Okay, this is the normal curve. and these parameters shifting the curve to the right side. Okay, when acute acidosis is there, high carbon dioxide is there, and increased temperature, high level of 2,3 diphosphoglycerate or abnormal hemoglobin. Okay, so these conditions shift the curve to the right side. Okay, so you see that. And another point is that Bohr effect. Okay, so by Christian Bohr in 1904, the effect of carbon dioxide on the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve is known as Bohr effect. Okay, so high partial pressure of CO2 level and low pH decrease affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen and curves to the right side. Okay, and this occurs at the tissue where high level of partial pressure of carbon dioxide and acidemia contribute to the unloading of oxygen. Okay, so this effect is called Bohr effect because this effect is discovered by the Bohr. Okay, so in this figure you can see that Bohr effect. Okay, so that this is normal curve. Okay, this is uh, curve to the right side due to the Bohr effect. Okay, this is a relationship of pH and partial pressure of oxygen. Okay, you can see that the when the pH decrease, the curves to the right side. When the pH increase, curves to the left side. Okay. Okay. And at the x-axis, this is partial pressure of oxygen, and this is percentage hemoglobin saturation. And what are the implications of the Bohr effect? So enhance oxygen of blood in the lungs, and to enhance release of oxygen in the tissue. And in lungs, carbon dioxide diffuse out of the blood when the uh, pH is decreased due to carbonic acid. Okay, and due to dissociation of carbonic acid, shift of the oxygen hemoglobin curve to the left side. Okay, and oxygen bound to the hemoglobin increase and results in increase in the oxygen transport to the tissue or in the tissue capillary when the carbon dioxide concentration increase and the HN concentration increase. Okay, so greater release of oxygen due to the less avoid binding of oxygen to the hemoglobin. Okay, another term is double Bohr effect. Okay? So reciprocal changes in acid base balance that occur in maternal and fetal blood in transit through the placenta. Okay. So here you can see that this is fetal blood. This is maternal blood. Okay. This is loss of carbon dioxide in the fetal blood due to the Bohr effect, rise in the pH, and left toward shift to oxygen dissociation curve. And this is maternal blood, gain of carbon dioxide, fall in pH, and rightward shift of oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, so that's why this is called double Bohr effect. Okay, it differently affects fetal blood and maternal blood. Okay, you can see that the fetal versus maternal effect of Bohr effect on fetal versus maternal oxygen dissociation curve. Okay. Now, a role of 2,3 with diphosphoglycerate. So, 2,3 diphosphoglycerate is an organic phosphate normally found in the RBC that produced during anaerobic glycolysis in RBC. Okay. So, how it affects the oxygen transport into the blood. Okay. So, tendency to bind to a beta chain of hemoglobin and thereby decrease the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. Okay, so you can see that how it affects the hemoglobin affinity with the oxygen. It promotes a rightward shift and enhance oxygen unloading at the tissue, and this shift is longer in duration than that due to uh, a change in the hydrogen concentration and partial pressure of carbon dioxide or temperature. Okay, that's why a doubling of diphosphoglycerate will result in the 10 core increase in the partial pressure of oxygen, that is P50 value. Okay, so the level increase with when the 2,3 diphosphoglycerate level increase, on which condition, cellular hypoxia, anemia, hypoxemia, congenital heart disease, ascent to high altitude. Okay, so these conditions increase the level of 2,3 diphosphoglycerate, and septic shock, acidemia, stored blood, decrease the level of 2,3 diphosphoglycerate into the blood. And effect of 2,3 diphosphoglycerate on the stored blood. In bank blood, the 2,3 bisphospho level falls, and the ability of this blood to release O2 to the tissue is reduced. Okay, and less if blood is stored in citrus phosphate dextrose solution, then acid citrate dextrose solution. Okay, okay, so this is the effect of 2,3 bisphospho diphosphoglycerate on the stored blood. And you have to see that effect of anemia and carbon monoxide on the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation carbon. Okay, so you have to see that how these conditions affect the oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, you have to see this is normal curve. This is curve when there is carbon monoxide is there, when there is anemia is there. Okay, and oxygen dissociation curve versus myoglobin dissociation curve. Okay, this is both curve are different. Okay, and myoglobin store oxygen in the muscle and release it only when the oxygen partial pressure is very low. Okay, and oxygen delivery during exercise. So during strenuous exercise, venous oxygen increase up to 20 times than normal, and blood also remain in the capillary for less than half normal time due to increase in the carbon monoxide concentration. And oxygen saturation not affected by the blood when the blood fully saturated in the first one third of the normal time available to pass through pulmonary circulation. So diffusion capacity increase up to threefold when the additional capillary open and increase number of capillary participating in the diffusion process, when the dilation of both alveoli and capillary. Okay, it increase the alveolar capillary distance. Okay, and improve VQ ratio in upper part of the lung due to increased blood flow to the upper part of lung. So there are so many parameters which affect the oxygen transport into the blood, and shift of oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve to the right direction when the carbon dioxide concentration are released from exercising muscles. When the increase in the hydrogen concentration, that decrease the pH of blood, increase the temperature, release of the phosphate, that 2,3 diphosphoglycerate. Okay, so these conditions shift the curve toward the right direction. Okay, you have to see that curve shift to the right direction. And oxygen delivery in critical illness. So the tissue hypoxia is due to disorder regional distribution of blood flow, often caused by the capillary microthrombosis after endothelial damage and neutrophil activation rather than by arterial hypoxemia. Okay. So during critical illness, this is the effect in the oxygen transport into the blood. Okay, so oxygen stored are limited to lungs and blood, and the amount of oxygen in the lung is dependent on the FRC and the alveolar concentration of oxygen. And breathing 100% oxygen cause a large increase in the total store as the FRC fills with oxygen, and this is reason why pre-oxygenation is so effective. And the effect of anesthesia. So the normal protective response to hypoxia is reduced by anesthetic drug, and this effect extend into the post-operating period also. So, so anesthesia decrease FRC, and VQ mismatch is increased, and atelectasis develop rapidly, and venous admixture increase from normal approx 1% to around 10%. Okay, following induction of anesthesia, and volatile anesthetic agent suppress hypoxic pulmonary vasoconstriction, and many anesthetic agents depress carbon monoxide and therefore decrease oxygen delivery. Anesthesia caused 50% reduction in the metabolic rate and therefore reduction in the oxygen requirement. And artificial ventilation causes a further 6% decrease in the oxygen requirement as the work of breathing is removed. And what is pulmonary shunting? So perfusion without ventilation and is called pulmonary shunting. And pulmonary shunt is that portion of the cardiac output that enters the left side of the heart without coming in contact with annulus. Okay. So the true shunt is there is no contact there, and anatomic shunt or cardiac anomalies and shunt like some ventilation, but not enough to allow for complete equilibrium between alveolar gas and oxygen. Okay, and it affects venous admixture. Venous admixture is the mixing of shunted and non-deoxygenated blood with deoxygenated blood distal to the alveoli. That results in the decrease in the partial pressure of oxygen and saturation of oxygen. Okay, that these are the references. Now you have to attempt quiz. The first question is ratio of oxygen bound to hemoglobin compared to the total amount that can be bound is called oxygen saturation. Okay, so answer A is correct. And the type of transported oxygen and carbon dioxide in lungs by the process of diffusion. So option A is correct. And oxygen move down the concentration gradient from a relatively high level in the air to that in the lungs. So option A is correct. And maximum oxygen carries in the blood in the form of a bonded form. So option A is correct. And each gram hemoglobin can carry up to 1.34 ml of oxygen. So option D is correct. And hemoglobin combined with oxygen by the reversible process. So option A is correct. And types of bond between oxygen and hemoglobin is loose coordination bond. So option A is correct. And oxygen carried in the blood in molecular state. So option A is correct. Okay. So thank you everyone.